Okay, so after reading chapter 72 of Boruto Naruto Next Generations, there's a couple of things that haven't happened yet, and I'm almost certain, based on reading this chapter, I know are going to happen. I mean, I know. I'm like damn sure that these things are gonna happen, because it just seems like some of these setups are perfectly placed, but also, it really feels like this chapter in particular, like we've had some instances in other chapters, but definitely this chapter felt like it was giving some more build-up and setup for the inevitable time skip, which we also got to talk about tonal shifts and so many different things that this chapter provided after, again, that long hiatus of what felt like a million years but was realistically 2 months since we had the last chapter of Boruto. And yeah, this chapter, it feels like, yo dog, they took what they had, they took the feedback of how fans was feeling about Code and everything that went down in chapter 71, and we're like, back to the drawing board, we gotta get it right. And seems like they kind of started getting their ducks in a row, so to speak. So without further ado, I don't want to waste any more of your time. We gotta talk about this Boruto chapter 72 and what's going down, because I'm telling you, I think I know a couple of things that are gonna happen based off what we got here.
I must go, must leave this house. I must go, the time is now. I must go, it's time to get out.
By the way, subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I drop new content over here. Check out my playlist of videos and stuff. We talk about it all, and we have a blast doing it. So please do yourself a favor, do me a favor, and subscribe. Okay, so one more time, even though I talked about it in the spoilers, I absolutely have to reference it again. I was very, very satisfied to get this really awesome colored cover page for Boruto chapter 72 with Momoshiki. Very simple, orange background with Momoshiki on the cover, but nevertheless, anytime you see the Otsutsuki aliens, you know it's going to be something big, because hello, one of the big things about Boruto is the advancements with Boruto, and it's Momoshiki. That's one of the biggest things. That's pretty much the Kurama to his Naruto, but in a more twisted way, because at the very least, even though Kurama was like this evil fox at first, or came across as that, inevitably you knew that there was something more to the lore. With this guy, with Momoshiki, you know, he's an evil, you know, alien that doesn't care about anything other than his own ambition. So I don't see Momoshiki turning over a new leaf. I could be totally wrong. Maybe he could grow a slight fondness for Boruto, but I don't really see it. If I'm off, I'm off about that, but I don't know if we're gonna have that big moment where Naruto conquers Kurama's hatred and hugs him and we're all hunky-dory. I don't think that's the case of what's to come with Boruto and Momoshiki's relationship. If I'm off, I'm off, and something tragic could happen, but there doesn't look like an ounce of potential for Momoshiki to have a change of heart. I mean, he's damn near like a computer virus at this particular point. But the chapter opens up with some dialogue from Kawaki and Shikamaru and them, and pretty much Kawaki once again continuing on to be the disrespectful lad that he is, because for starters, he's like, oh, perfect, Amado, good, get him out of here, he ain't gonna be coming back, why we even gotta worry about who or what he is, it don't matter, he's donezo. And that's classic Kawaki. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people rock with him. He's the badass, ain't taking a goddamn thing from nobody, little lad of Boruto. Oh my god, I described Kawaki as a little lad. Anyway, but it wasn't even just that he, you know, went in and was talking about, yeah, Amado's not gonna make it back, who cares, which also, I feel like Kawaki's gotten even a little more harsh ever since the awakening of his new karma. It might be cockiness, it might be something else, but I've noticed a slight shift in his character of almost looking even more colder when it comes to doing anything possible to save and avoid any disturbances to Naruto. But then he goes a little bit far when I'm like, yo bro, relax on who you talking to, pay attention to who you talking to, because you might offend the wrong person, dog. Where he was talking about Shikamaru like he ain't nothing as well, and I'm there like, if I wasn't so lazy, I'd hop in that comic and whip your ass, boy. Okay, I'm not lazy, and unfortunately we can't hop into comics and whip ass, but it would feel good though. Especially, again, that line, hey Shika, you're secretly glad, aren't you, to not have to deal with that shifty bastard? And he says, worthless and upset. What a great combo. And I was like, yeah, Kawaki, I'm liking you more and more with every time that you talk some smack. But then the next scene comes across where basically Shikamaru gets the call from Amado that he is with Eida and Damon, and that everything is basically shifted, so to speak. And I ain't even gonna lie, a couple of characters in this chapter I felt like took a little bit of a twist. While Kawaki felt a little bit more, I don't want to say ominous, but just he was wild disrespectful, even more so than the Kawaki we know to be disrespectful. Then Amado, on the other side of things, he was kind of talking a little bit heavy now. I don't know if it's the fact that he has Eida and Damon Damon by his side, even though they're not here to rock with him per se, but they're still, you know, the jury is out on who the hell Amado is. It could very well be the case of the idea that a lot of people have that these are his children, and he might feel like, you know, how Jiro felt at first with 17 and 18, that, yeah, my kiddos got me, don't worry. And well, we know where that got Jiro, because when Shikamaru's talking about, yo, dog, you don't got the authority to make these decisions. What the hell do you think you're doing? Amado strikes right back, and you didn't either. Who do you think you are? I was just there like, oh, okay, somebody feels a little bit confident now that you got these two by your side. But let's be clear about something. One major thing, right? Because yes, Eida and Damon are going to be taking refuge in Konoha with the main goal and objective that Eida wants Kawaki to be hers. And let's be all the way real. Number one of the things that are clearly going to happen, I mean, it's just inevitable, is that you think Kawaki cares about that right now? Granted, Eida might be a little bit putty for the lad. Kawaki doesn't care about that. He's like, yo, dog, if you ain't the Hokage, I ain't talking, which kind of sounds a little weird, but yeah, that is not going to go all according to nada. Like, yo, Kawaki ain't gonna deal with that. He ain't trying to go with that. So what's going to happen, just as she threatened Amado in this chapter, when Kawaki inevitably says, if you don't get your musty mouth away from me right now, where's the Hokage? I need to help him. That's pretty much going to be the case, and that's when her hired gun is going to feel like, you disrespecting my big sis? Oh no. And then Damon's going to go batshit, and it's going to be all hell and chaos in Konoha. So actually, I'm kind of interested in seeing that. I can't wait for it. I'm looking forward to that, because we already see that Eida, when it comes to rejection, she's not going to take it, and Kawaki is going to reject her. I don't see him switching anything else. I mean, granted, probably majority of the people in Konoha are going to be drooling over her, but yeah, Kawaki's not going to go for it. Then we cut to Shikamaru's call to Boruto and Team 7, along with Kawaki, that he wants them all to go to the Hokage office, so Boruto preps to go. And this was a scene that I felt a little bit mixed, right? Because I felt this, I guess, feeling, so to speak, when it comes to Hinata throughout Boruto, because realistically, the one epic moment that Hinata had in Naruto Shippuden, or Naruto as a whole, I mean, she had a couple of other moments in the 4th grade Shinobi War, but her biggest moment, in my opinion, was, of course, during the Pain arc, when she jumped in to save Naruto. So when you cut to these scenes, right, I guess it's also just demonstrating where her character is at right now, because I know it sounds like a crazy idea, but people change with age, especially Hinata. She kind of morphed her character, which you could argue maybe was a little bit one-dimensional, of just always wanting, you know, that Naruto Uzumaki D to, she's a mom now, and moms, you know, they move different, so to speak. Their love is different. So it's not necessarily that she's weakened per se, although God knows when's the last time she went on a shinobi mission, but ultimately the exchange that she has with Boruto, where she's worried that the next time she sends him off, he's not going to return. That'll be the last time she sees him, and she starts crying. And admittedly, there's been a couple of times where I've been harsh about it, and granted, I'm still a little bit, I guess you would say, salty, as the fan in me wants to see Hinata say, no, fuck all that shit, I'm going with my son. But then I think about just the real world, and yeah, any mom is going to actually be very worried and scared, especially considering the circumstances that my 13-year-old son is with this curse mark that could kill him, and there's, you know, these people that are after him. It would have been probably the same with Kushina with Naruto, except, you know, she passed on before he was born and all that stuff, but it probably would have been the same case. It's just her reaction is a little bit different, because maybe she softened up a little bit with being a mom and stuff like that. I made the comparison in the spoilers that Chi-Chi would never and Kushina would never, but that's the difference. Remember, Kushina wanted Naruto to be with somebody like her, which would have been Sakura. Hinata's not like her. Hinata feels differently, and granted, I could see an epic moment coming down the road where inevitably Hinata has to jump on a battlefield to save her children or whatnot, but that was the appropriate response for a mom that's worried about her young son dealing with life and death situations, on top of the fact that her son pretty much almost died not that long ago. And then, of course, we get an exchange with Boruto and Momoshiki, and right here is a tone setter, right? And then a reminder nonetheless, because it wasn't necessarily like new info per se, but the fact that Momoshiki continues on with the same kind of dialogue, so to speak, with Boruto, of telling him, yo, it's rapidly approaching, the time where you're gonna lose everything is not that far off. It kind of reminds me that despite the fact that we're really excited for the time skip, it's going to be really sad. Like, just think about it for a moment. This whole Konoha and everybody in it, but in particular everything that Boruto loves, is supposedly going to be lost to him. Something that I've covered extensively here is that Boruto's tale is a story of riches to rags, so to speak. We're starting off with basically pre-time skip is the riches, where, you know, he's the Hokage's son. He's looked at as like this benevolent kid and all of this stuff. And we're headed towards a direction, if Momoshiki's prophecy comes to fruition, of losing it all. If I lose it all, hey, the rumbling. No, but also something that I felt was introduced into this chapter that really wasn't a thing is the fact that Momoshiki pretty much introduces the idea that, yeah, I can't necessarily take on your body anymore and like turn into myself per se, but apparently he could still take over the consciousness of Boruto. So think like Get Out, so to speak. He tells him, yo, I'm gonna push your consciousness into a corner and I'm gonna take over. And I have no doubt in my mind that we're still gonna have a couple of outbursts where Momoshiki essentially takes over the consciousness and runs with Boruto's body without like the drastic Otsutsuki body transformations per se. So that's something that adds an extra layer of things to worry about, that, oh no, it's not that Momoshiki is just sitting there in a chair and can't do shit. He still very well could. Just think like, imagine if Kurama could take over Naruto's body without actually becoming the big fox and whatnot. That's pretty much what can still happen with Boruto. So having the karma mark on him is still something to worry about. It's not like, hey, all our worries are over now. No, Momoshiki still can have his way. He'll just be Boruto, and he's pretty much saying, that's fine, I can still do what I want to do anyway. And if anything, if Momoshiki did take over Boruto's body, it might be a little bit different. Think about it. He might not be necessarily completely driven about the chakra fruit and whatnot, because he will essentially have Boruto's body with his mind, but will he be thirsting for the chakra fruit and stuff like that? I mean, granted, we're probably never going to go that direction anyway. It's not like Momoshiki's going to just take over for the rest of part 2. Oh my god, that would actually be fire. That would be so different if like the protagonist of Boruto is basically now under control of Momoshiki. Think like Double Dragons, so to speak, even though it wasn't really like that in Double Dragons. But you know, pretty much like Sasuke going to the dark side, but it wouldn't even be really Boruto going to the dark side. He would just be under control, lock and key by Momoshiki. And I love how he ends off with, again, saying, sputter all you want, your fate is already decided. I look forward to it. Uzumaki Boruto. You are my precious vessel, my life. No one can have you. Pretty much he's in love with Boruto. No, oh god, please, no. Next thing you know, people are going to be on my Twitter spamming me with Boruto x Momoshiki. Oh my god, don't do it. And I'm not being, you know, jokey. Please leave that shit away from me. It was nice seeing Sarada and Mitsuki, even if it was for a split second, and they probably think Boruto has gone bonkers as he's screaming, I'll decide my own fate, and running off. I'm like, well, at least they didn't forget them, right? Still underutilized, and I would have loved a little bit more with them, but I guess the anime, right? I hear right now, as it stands, the Boruto Next Generation's anime is like 2 to 3 episodes deep into the new arc. I might actually dive back in, because, yeah, I kind of miss these characters that were promoted as, you know, the new Team 7 and all that stuff, and have been wiped from existence post Ishiki Otsutsuki battle. And another major thing that just seems so obvious to me at this particular point, the anime pretty much flirted with the idea of whether or not it will happen, but it felt so clear to me with this chapter that Himawari's definitely gonna go the Shinobi route. Like, there was a little question of it, especially in some of the anime episodes where she was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be a ninja or whatnot. This chapter, in my opinion, cemented it, and on top of that, you add all the other extra layers. I mean, for crying out loud, Himawari has that Gohan-esque ability that when she gets really upset, she gets really freaking strong, and was strong enough to surprise Naruto and knock him out the day he was supposed to do the inauguration for Hokage. So you add all of those elements alongside with this, where she says, I was just thinking that if I became a ninja, maybe I could help Boruto out a little, or would you worry even more? And that's cementing that she's probably going to be a ninja so that she can help her brother. And I really hope going into the time skip that it pretty much cements Himawari as some badass ninja. Take like, you know how kind of Konohamaru was the one that was younger than everybody else but was kind of doing his thing, but amplify that, add the actual potential being somewhat realized. Well, won't go there. We're not gonna go into the disappointments of Konohamaru, but nevertheless, they could make Himawari one of the most badass ninja after the time skip. I don't know how many years the time skip is. I'm guessing maybe like 3 or 4 4 years, whatnot. But you add 3 or 4 years to this kid with these latent abilities, and boom, you will make a really badass ninja and for some really awesome action. Considering she has the ability to be stronger than probably anybody if she unlocks her potential, this to me confirms that she's gonna be a shinobi. And if she isn't, my gosh, that was a waste of a panel because it's such good setup. And also something from my perspective is just something else laying down the foundation for what's to come. This chapter had a lot of elements that feels like, oh, it's really setting up for something big down the road. And allow me to add one little second of immaturity to this review where it was freaking hilarious to me. As Boruto's running, he's talking to his hand and saying, I won't let you do as you please, Momoshiki. You hear? It's almost as if he's talking to his hand and he named his hand Momoshiki. Let me see Boruto's web browser. No. Forgive my immaturity. And then the last piece of the chapter that was one of the most important parts of the chapter, Code with Bug, which, why is he dragging Bug along? Is it just that he's heartbroken over Eida, as he describes in this chapter, that he needs somebody to vent to? Or maybe he's just going to be a dummy sacrifice? Like, why are you still carrying around this worthless man with you? I mean, the whole reason for him was pretty much just to watch these frozen robots and whatnot. What the hell is he even doing here? But I guess maybe he could be like, you know, the butler, so to speak, to him in a weird way, or an assistant, or again, just so Code ain't lonely. But pretty much Code does what I said earlier in this video, that I know what's about to happen, because pretty much he uses his belts to shrink down, cut down the Ten Tails, which, what a waste, man. I would have loved to see that Ten Tails ravage through and rampage before being split up into little pieces, but he splits them up into what looks like some weird Frieza. I'm not gonna lie, this felt like the month of Frieza. If you read Dragon Ball Super, you know what I'm talking about. And he basically creates these clones of the Ten Tails, pieces of them, for what seems to be a massive war incoming, with Code being the general, having these Frieza looking ten-tailed pieces. And here's where what I've been thinking for a bit is indeed going to happen, without a doubt in my mind, because now the Ten Tails are more in a humanoid form and more manageable to Code, and on top of that, they're pretty much restricted to a certain degree because of his belts being wrapped around him. I have no doubt in my mind, when push comes to shove, because he's already, mind you, he's unlocked his limiters. He doesn't have the limiters anymore, so he's probably surpassed Naruto and Sasuke. What happens when he inevitably absorbs all of those ten-tail pieces into his body and ultimately becomes Jubi Code? Yes, I'm getting the name before you guys. Jubi Code. That's probably what's going to happen when push comes to shove and they have a massive battle. I mean, maybe he'll start off with a war of like a big invasion and having all the ten-tailed clones attacking Konoha and everybody there. And then when push comes to shove, even if they're all defeated into little pieces, he could just use his belts, bring all of them, teleport them into him, and boom, we'll have Jubi Code, we'll have Ten Tails Code, which will easily surpass anybody out there. Because if he's already surpassing Naruto and Sasuke with just his form right now, what happens when he becomes a Sage of Six Paths god, so to speak? This is going to be epic. This battle, I'm starting to see what they're doing, how they're setting things up. Himawari to be the next Shinobi with crazy potential, Code possibly becoming a Ten Tails host, and so many other things. And I'm so glad that Boruto came back swinging, because we was having some misses before the big break, but it looks like they kind of pulled it together. And I ain't gonna lie, I'm really freaking excited about Boruto. I was very pessimistic prior to the break, and I feel like this chapter started putting it together that no, some really epic stuff is about to happen, just relax. And this chapter, it hit mighty well for me. But I'm extremely curious what you guys think. Big question for starters, do you think my Jubi Code theory prediction is pretty much inevitable, that he's going to absorb all those using his belts that are strapped around, even if they're destroyed around Konoha? All he has to do is have, boom, a claw mark on him, and then everything will go into him instantaneously, even if they've been defeated. Also, what did you think about that interaction between Hinata and Boruto? There's been a little controversy in the community about why is she just crying, and while yes, I would love for Hinata to be more strong, ultimately some moms do that. Sakura ain't gonna do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Hinata can't, because remember, Kushina said find a woman like me that's strong or whatnot. That was Sakura. Hinata's strong in her own right, and that's okay. My mom would probably be the same way if I was 13 years old and having a monster taking over me. Your thoughts on how things are going to play out now that Eida, Damon, and Amado are headed back to Konoha? Do you think Kawaki's gonna actually go for it? I have no doubt in my mind, even if they push him into it and try to say, yo, just go along with it, things ain't gonna go according to plan, dog. This ain't no Aizen. And your thoughts and expectations for the next chapter of Boruto. The 5th Great Shinobi War is incoming thanks to Code and these freaking 10-tailed beasts that he cut down. Although, again, it's such a shame. I would have loved to see the 10 tails one more time. I mean, he did take out Neji, I'm just saying. But that's all I have for this one. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy! Have an awesome day. Peace in, and things is getting mighty spicy if I do say so myself, my lord.
I have a dream, alone in my room as I sit with the tea. Couldn't possibly think what I often see, and you don't even know how I often blink. Lights be flashing and looking at me, such an odd unique, yet I'm so unique and you're looking at me. If the walls could talk, they would probably repeat, and I'd probably say, bitch, get the fuck off me.